Hello, this is Molly Reamer with 30 Days of Goddess in Bridget's Grove with this month's Goddess Guidance Club video. This month we are honoring Hecate. Hecate is the Greek crone goddess of crossroads, transitions, and wisdom. You will see her really fitting in very well in our unfolding series of themes and videos for the last several months. We've been talking a lot about being at the crossroads, about thresholds and transitions. So she's the goddess of the thresholds of transitions and wisdom. She is gatekeeper, guardian, and guide. Hecate is associated with crossroads, the underworld, dogs, serpents, torchlights, and the moon, and she's sometimes portrayed as a triple-faced goddess. She's also associated with witchcraft, magic, and the night, the queen of witches sometimes. And she is as the triple goddess, and I mentioned this briefly in our core practice video, which is available at 30daysofgoddess.com, is that she is closely associated with Persephone, who I have a special affinity with as the writer of Walking with Persephone and a lot of in-depth work with Persephone. And so Hecate often is stated to have witnessed her abduction, or, depending on how you interpret that tale, but also to have helped Demeter, Persephone's mother, search for her. And so she also forms the crone face of the triple goddess in Greek mythology, with Hecate as the crone, Persephone as the maiden, and Demeter or Demeter as the mother. So the maiden mother crone are Persephone, Demeter, and Hecate. And so she's closely entwined with Persephone. She was helped Demeter search for her. She was a guide for Persephone through the underworld, and she herself is an underworld goddess. So she's perfect for October and our month of magic. So just a reminder that if you're part of our Goddess Magic community on Patreon, that's patreon.com/goddessmagic, you do have access to this fabulous guidebook as well for the month with lots of resources in it. You also have a Hecate bookmark and ritual card packet with our theme of the month and affirmation of the month, and the Hecate card. And you also get the full pack of snapshot cards and our little stickers, so to speak. You have to cut them out yourself, so they're not exactly stickers, but you can make them into stickers with glue to use in your resources. So those things are available to you to explore. And I'm going to go ahead and switch camera views now to speak a little bit more about Hecate without just being my hands and the materials on the screen. So switching camera views, and then I'll be back in just a second. I just realized I forgot to also say that you also get a Hecate mini devotional prayer book as part of the Goddess Magic community. I don't have a copy printed out right now because it's actually out for pickup at Staples, but it is available to you as well. I've done a whole series for the Goddess Guidance Club videos for this month. So at the end, you'll have a 12-month mini devotional library of little prayer books for specific goddesses. So anyway, as we continue to discuss Hecate for this month, I'm going to share a little section from this Naming the Goddess book. So I will say that Hecate is one of the more popular goddesses in terms of information being available about her online, both from a historical perspective and from a modern perspective, or from people's personal experiences. And so I looked through a lot of books and decided, what am I going to talk about in this video? What am I going to share? And I have so many books that have things about Hecate in them. And then I actually ordered 2 more on Kindle, the devotional series, the Pagan Portals series about Hecate, and some other resources I'll link to below this video. But I went ahead and chose this Naming the Goddess anthology as my source for this video because it has kind of a snapshot overview of Hecate in it, and I felt like that was a good start. But there's lots more information about her than there are about many of the goddesses that we've talked about in these monthly videos. And so anyway, one of the things I wanted to first share is my own personal experience with Hecate. So for me, she was one of the earliest goddesses that I encountered by name in an experience that I have kept relatively private. I've alluded to it before, and it's a small experience, but it really has shaped me in many ways. And it is that, so I was 24 at the time. I was 24 and I had just had my first baby. And I was really crawling through that underworld of postpartum, journeying through that underworld of postpartum. Inanna is a useful guide for that as well. But I'm journeying through this underworld of postpartum. I was feeling very battered, very bruised, very worn, very much in almost a type of grief for the lost self and the adjustment. And, this was a very planned and wanted baby. This was, I'd been married for 5 years. This was a baby that I was really, happy to have. And still, it kind of plunged me into an underworld type of journey of that lost self, like who I have to let go of everything I was before he was born. And he was born on the equinox, and I had that sensation of almost like, kind of reaching my hand out to my old self and to my old marriage and to my old like relationship with everything. And I was deconstructed. I felt like I was deconstructed, like I had the meat chewed off my bones, like I'd been boiled down and like almost destroyed and then had to rebuild. So I joke about him as being the baby Smith of my life, right? So I was reforged in the crucible of motherhood after he was born. But anyway, so he had not been born. He was only a couple weeks old. And I decided, and he's 21 now, and I had 3 other kids. But at the time, he was, this was really fresh for me. And I went into I was living in a little apartment. And I went into the room where I did yoga. I had a yoga practice, and that was actually my first type of daily practice, was this yoga practice. And I went to try to do yoga, I think for the first time since he was born. So I was tired and tender and sore, and he was sleeping, and I kind of crept into the room to do yoga, and I spread out my yoga mat. And as I sat down on the yoga mat, I'm talking audibly in the room, a voice say, Hecate, Hecate, like that. Okay, so this sounds kind of weird. That's why I don't tell this story very often, because it's one of those things like, was I having some kind of postpartum psychosis? Like what was going on? And I did not recognize the name. I had never heard the name Hecate before. I did not know what it meant. I did not know what I was hearing, but it was so clear. Hecate came through. There was a voice in the room. And I went to my computer, and at the time, there's Google barely existed. I mean, I think it did exist. I don't remember what I used at the time. It wasn't Google, but anyway, Google was out there somewhere. But I Googled for Hecate, thinking like, what is this? What am I even hearing? What is this? Who is she? And what I read, frankly, kind of scared me. And I thought, ooh. So I sort of shied away from her for all the other years to come. Like that was a very early, very direct, very clear voice from a goddess that I pretty much ignored after that point forward, because she seemed too scary. To be honest, she seemed too scary. So Hecate is often associated with dark goddesses, with dark, and people get weird about the dark and think that it somehow means bad or evil or wrong or, this sinister kind of thing. And so that was kind of the feeling that I had at the time, and that's why I shied away from it. So then every time I would see Hecate mentioned, I had that kind of feeling of wariness or unease, like, like what's going on? And so I wonder sometimes, like, what would have happened if I would have followed that thread? If she was offering me a key, and what would have happened if I would have followed the signs instead of rejecting it? But she, and then in the process of writing, okay, yeah. So sorry about that. I'm like jumping around. But it makes sense to me now that she appeared in that crossroads moment, in that threshold moment, that transitional moment, that underworld moment for me of coming out of the underworld of postpartum, of carrying my little baby through the labyrinth of the underworld and emerging into to this reconstructed, deconstructed self. Who am I? So no wonder she showed up, because she's the guardian of the crossroads and of transitions. And then the other experience that I had with her that I wanted to share with you is in the writing of Walking with Persephone. I had this other Hecate experience wherein, so we have a road that we walk on, and it has a crossroads in it, which technically is 2 roads meeting, but there's still a 3-way road. So there's the road that comes in here, there's the road that goes out here, and there's the road that goes out here. But it's still just 2 roads, but there are 3 pathways. There's 3 ways to enter. And so I would often, in the writing of Walking with Persephone, walk down to that crossroads. That's where a lot of the poems were written. I would write the poems in my mind as I was walking down to this crossroads, to this threshold. And at the time, I've discovered on the way, like as I'm walking down to the crossroads, a dog skull in the woods by the crossroads. And you'll see on the Hecate card that she has this dog skull there. And interestingly, like Hecate is associated with dogs and guarding the crossroads with her dog there, with her hound there, and with death and with skulls, etc. And so in the book, in the Writing with Persephone, I wrote a lot about how like watching these stories come alive come alive for us. They're real right here. And so that was my Hecate moment of like, this isn't just a metaphor that I'm reading about crossroads. This isn't just a story that I'm reading about Hecate and the keys and the crossroads and the dogs. This is an actual dog skull in my actual woods by my actual crossroads that I am walking by as I am working through this underworld journey with Persephone. And so that was my other story. Those are my two Hecate stories that I wanted to share with you. And then tapping into this Naming the Goddess book edited by Trevor Greenfield. There's a lot of good information here about lots of different goddesses, but just a quick synopsis of Hecate. Hecate is a triple goddess, the keeper of keys, the carrier of the torch, the one who stands at the crossroads. She's actually thought to have originated in Turkey, Anatolia, and even though she's associated with Greek. And so that's why you sometimes get different spellings, different pronunciations of her name, is she actually kind of came from Turkey and migrated to Greek. And so lots about Hecate. They've uncovered sculptures of her from Roman times, and often with these three faces. And as I spoke in the did I speak in the other video? Was it this one? About Persephone as the maiden and Demeter as the mother, and then Hecate as the crone in the triple faces of the goddess. And so sometimes they've said that these heads might have been a dog, a serpent, and a horse, a cow, or a boar head, but that she has these triple faces. When pre-Olympia, she was the great goddess of Turkey and Anatolia, and so we don't really know whether she was Greek or from there. But as her followers moved into Greece, she possibly got absorbed into the Greek pantheon. She's often accompanied by sacred dogs. She often carries a torch. She's associated with the dark of the moon, and her worship was widespread in the classical ages. During the Middle Ages, she became known as the Queen of Witches, a title which continued into the modern time, and her followers are still spread throughout the world, often carrying on traditional methods of worship and ritual. During the dark moon, some devotees will gather for a supper for Hecate to sit outside in the darkness of the hidden moon, and then leftovers are then left at the crossroad for Hecate and her dogs. And then, so she's linked with lots of symbols, as we've already said. Keys, torch, and crossroads are the ones that continue to be used in modern ritual. Crossroads journeys may be embarked upon at dark moons or at Samhain. And she's also linked with the underworld, seen as one who helps those who are taking journeys, the one who can guide the way. Hence why she popped up in that postpartum time for me when I was stepping onto that yoga mat for the first time. Excuse me. So she's also a protection goddess, and is associated with protection as well as guidance. Sorry about that. If I was more professional, I'd edit that out, and I'm not going to, because I like to just get these videos done, and I'm not trying to be fancy. So sorry about that. And so anyway, Queen of the Witches, Hecate lights the way with her torch in the darkness when all seems lost, and inspires us to know that we are not alone in our journeys. And so closing today, there is a little prayer card tucked into the back of my ritual packet. I step into the sacred. I open myself to life's magic, the arising and becoming. I pause and rest one hand on my heart and one hand on my belly. I ground myself in the wisdom of the land and the cycles of the seasons, the great unfolding right here. And then Hecate's poem from our card. Listen, I am the gatekeeper. You ask for directions, and I offer the keys for you to take your own path. Thank you so much for being here. I can't wait to see what magic unfolds for you in October. Thanks for being here. Keep living your magic. Bye-bye.